Hi, everybody. Welcome to Boulton from Boulton. This is the show where my brother Josh and I set each other up for lively hockey talk and banter. So, Josh, what's happening there? You're at the cottage, is that right?
Yes, I'm having a staycation. Hashtag Nova Scotia, hashtag staycation 2020.
Okay, it's all about the hashtags. Yeah, I saw you on Facebook there, and you guys are going around to Grand Pré, and you're out in the lake, and it's a beautiful day, and you're at the Hockey History Museum in Windsor. Did you see anything interesting there, by the way? Anything that stood out to you, by the way, before we go on?
What stood out to me there is how many women were playing significant games, even in the late 1800s and through most of the early 1900s. There was a lot of pictures of women's teams there, and they looked happy as can be, and there was a lot of cool things about women's skates and how they adopted figure skates and things like that. The sticks they used. It was very interesting to know that the women's game was as prominent as it was back then, and I really hope they can make that continue these days.
All right. Well, anyway, it's pretty exciting going around there. It looks pretty good. Meanwhile, I'm in Korea, and it's the rainy season, which means it's muggy, and the whole week is just lined up with like the icon with the cloud with the lightning in it, right? And it's just rainy and gray. But there is light because we got hockey. We've got playoff hockey to brighten my life. And, you can call it whatever you want with the play-ins and all that stuff, but it is playoff hockey. When that puck drops, those guys are playing for their Stanley Cup lives, and it's on. So, but unfortunately for some people, their team is not in the playoffs. There are a few people, such people who don't have their team in the playoffs. And this brings up, leads me to a question that you brought up to me recently, which I thought was interesting, is when is it okay to abandon your team? If you're going to put it in such terms. Will you tell me what you mean by that and maybe adopt a new team or something? What do you mean?
Well, I was never considering leaving the Oilers, but I mean, they had a really rough stretch. But that wasn't even the problem. Like when they were obviously really good when I was born, I was born the same year Wayne Gretzky entered the league, so all I knew was the Oilers winning. So as a kid, it was natural to pick them. And I became an Oilers fan for life. And then they went through a stretch where they weren't that successful, especially like salary cap things where they would develop all these good players. And then after 2 or 3 years, once they got really good, they couldn't afford to keep them anymore. Next thing you know, they're gone. But the team still played that run and gun style that I loved. They still took chances. They still were offensive minded. And when things were falling apart, it wasn't just that they were falling apart. It was that I didn't recognize the team anymore. The whole reason I loved the Oilers was because they were just so creative and they were so energetic. And no matter win or lose, they were just fun to watch. And then they became crap. Like they just were dull. They didn't care. The coaches were not pushing the energetic agenda. It was just boring robots. And I didn't enjoy it. And they weren't getting success out of it. So there was really nothing in it for me. And then like they just stopped doing the things that made me love the franchise. Everything, the culture changed. Everything just seemed to be wrong with them. So it wasn't that I was giving up on the team. It was that this, win or lose, this is boring to watch. It wasn't worth staying up for. As an East Coast fan, especially trying to stay up late to watch the Oilers, it just wasn't worth it anymore because you were like, well, it's like watching District 5 before Gordon Bombay took over. Basically, they didn't have any purpose.
So then did you adopt like a new team?
I didn't, but I mean, that's when I started asking myself the question: at what point is it okay to say, this isn't the team I fell in love with anymore? Mm-hmm. Like the Red Wings are going through a bad stretch, but they still have a good feeder system. They still have the same things in place. They still have some good young talent. There's hope there, right?
Well, there's more than hope. And I'll jump on a point you said, because I had it in my mind. The word that occurred to me when I thought about this question was culture. And for me, if the culture changes, if there's a whole culture change that I care about and that I believe in, then I think it's like I can give up on something because it's like they're a different person or they're a different They're a different thing that I don't support anymore. But that's not the case with my team. I still think the Red Wings culture is still alive and well. And you have to, after having that much success, you have to go through some time. Now, I want to, on this point, it reminded me of something else, that a point that I wanted to make when we were talking about the Seattle Kraken and the expansion in general. Last time we didn't mention, there are 32 teams now in the league. All right, so this means, do the math. For one team, if everybody gets one each, which is very unlikely, for one team, it's 31 years before you're going to win a cup. Right? So this is a fan base that's going to have to do that. 32 teams now. I think that you almost have to have 2 or 3 teams, at least, of your own that you care about. Right? So you've got your team, and I think there's something in your original team that you can't let go of. Like, it's true that, so let's say, for example, Detroit, right? I had my Red Wings, and then when Sid came in the league, I started obviously following him, and then we start paying attention to the Pens, and then you get to know the players. You get to know Marc-Andre and Gino and Tanger, and then you get to know the whole thing, and it's almost like you're in that family, if you know what I mean. So, because I always feel like I'm in the Red Wings family. It's like a whole, that's what it certainly was with the Ilitches, what they created there, and that's how everybody thinks about it. The Pens have that thing going on too. In their town, and every team has their own thing, and that's why people love the team. Mm-hmm. So I got into it, and I love the Pens. I love them as much, like I care about it. It's not like, it's easy to say, oh, you're bandwagon, you jumped on this and that. Well, okay, but yeah, I was following Sidney Crosby, and then I also happened to become a really great team, and then that's fun. And why wouldn't I adopt a team that's exciting and good? Because I like what they're about, their culture. So anyway, I've done that, and it's so exciting, and it gives me something really to look forward to for years. Now, it is true, at the same time, in 2008, 2009, when it came to it, I couldn't help but love the Red Wings. Like, I was at home, and everybody was around. Happened to be home in Cole Harbour. My wife came and visited Nova Scotia for the first time, and we were right in the middle of playoffs. And it was 2009 that time, where the Pens won, and I was just like, I couldn't help it. I was hoping for Detroit at the whole time, right in Cole Harbour, Sid's house, right across the street, his parents' house, and everybody in there hoping for them. And I just hope it. And then at the last moment where Marc-Andre made that save on Lidstrom, at that point I just let it go, and then I started enjoying that Sid won, and the Pens won. And of course, since then, I get up and down the same way I get up and down with Detroit. Like, my mood changes when they lose, and I'm up when they win. So I care a lot about it. But what I'm saying is, it's important to have this kind of team. I don't have Detroit now, but I've got Pittsburgh. And if somehow they both didn't make it, you want to have someone to get behind. So I think you have to adopt something else, and something else that you can enjoy. Maybe it's a player to start with or something, and then have a few teams. There's 32 teams out there. And I'm sorry if I'm going on. You do babble on. But I have one more comment about this, and it's something that goes back to something we were talking about, the Leafs now. And this is the idea of changing expectations for people. Because when you have 32 teams, and one team will not win for 31 years, and likely many others, because some team's going to win more than once in that time, I want to ask you, or anybody, why should Boston not think they're going to win the Cup this year? Why should Washington not think they're going to win the Cup? Tampa, Philly, maybe they think they should win. Edmonton has a good reason to think they should win. What about St. Louis, Colorado? I don't know, Vegas, Dallas, you can go on. Pittsburgh Penguins, why should they not think they're going to win the Cup this year? And then the Leafs want to think that they're winning the Cup, right? Okay, why? And why shouldn't they maybe, right? Well, when you put it in that context, some teams are going to be disappointed, and they're going to get up to knocking on the doorstep of the conference final, and they're not going to get there. And then everybody's going to step back and go, you know what? Well, it's another big disappointment. We didn't get to the conference final. We didn't make that push. One of those monster teams is going to be saying that, a few of them, right? All but 2 are not going to get to the conference final of those monster teams in the East. And then in the West, the same thing. So how are you measuring this idea? So I'm not saying, your goal shouldn't be to win the Stanley Cup every season, or in a rebuild, you're trying to rebuild a team toward the goal of winning the Stanley Cup. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is more, enjoy the ride. Enjoy, if my team is able to give me a 10-year thing where they're constantly in there, I enjoy each run, enjoy the ride throughout the playoffs. I expect to win game by game, series by series. And then when it's over, I say, you know what? That was great. And this is fun. And thank you. Not, what's going on and because how you're not going to win the cup. Like people, whoever your team is, you're not winning, but you might. You know what I'm saying? Give me something.
I know what you're saying, and as an Oilers fan, like it wasn't even good. It was to the point where I didn't want them to make the playoffs. They were so going in the wrong direction that I kept saying the worst thing that could possibly happen to them is to come 9th or 10th and just barely make the playoffs. Because then the management might think, oh, they're just 1 or 2 pieces away, when they couldn't have been further away from what they needed to do to get back. I wanted them to finish 28th, 29th, so that they'd get the hint that what you're doing sucks, right? So in all those years, I wanted them to fail so that they'd realize they were a failure and they needed to change something. But I still like the playoffs, so I'm going to hope for somebody, right? So I got into other teams. And as you become more of a hockey fan, then you start to appreciate things about other teams, and you start to appreciate things about specific players. So it's okay to wish success for other teams, and it's okay to say, hey, you know what? Who didn't want Ray Bourque in Colorado to go on a, if my team can't win it, then that player might as well win it. And we were excited about that. And who wasn't excited when St. Louis, like the story last year, all these stories, Carolina on their run, the Islanders on their run, St. Louis coming from dead last at a very late point in the year to win the cup. Who isn't sitting in the playoffs once their team is out going, wow, I got to pick one of these Cinderella stories to get behind because it's so much fun. And you're not an imposter or an intruder, and you're not abandoning your team. You're just getting behind another team and giving yourself something to enjoy while the playoffs are going on.
Yeah, I agree with all that. And that's what I think. I don't think you're a sellout or something because you want to like some other teams or you're not happy with what's going on. It's okay to, fall out of love. It's possible. So, but, and especially in the world of 32 teams, I'm telling people adopt a couple teams that you like, that you want to get behind. It makes it way more fun, certainly as far as I'm concerned anyway. I got one here for you, Josh, and for us too. But my friend Jason, he's been kind of rediscovering hockey in the last couple of years, rediscovering his Leafs. He's a Sudbury boy. He asked me a lot of questions about the game in general, because it's one that he didn't really grow up with and all that. And it makes me feel like a genius when I get to tell him, certain things that are really obvious. It's like me on my ball team. I ask the real ball players certain things about if we're on second and this, and they're just and they tell me whatever, and I'm just learning basic stuff. But anyway, he had a question that is not so basic, to be honest. He wants to know about the home familiarity and how much of an advantage that is. We talked about the crowds are out and whatnot in one context, but what about the bounces of a rink, the familiarity of the ice or any other things in a rink? Is this a real factor?
I don't think anymore. I mean, I'm not in those rinks, but they look awfully similar. There's really not a whole lot going on anymore. They used to have cool rinks. I mean, think of all the rinks that we used to play in. There was a rink in East Hants that was awesome. It had the chicken wire for glass, and it had a clock with hands, so you couldn't even tell how much time was left. That's the kind of rink. And then next thing you know, you go into Cole Harbour Place, and it's way different. And then they built a new rink, and it was all brick, and it was quiet, and it was a whole different circumstance. And then go into
it was literally chicken wire instead of glass around the ends. I'm just telling you. And it was freezing in there. Your toes would be freezing in the dressing room before you come out. Holy crap. But anyway, I mean, how great is that playing in there?
It was so fun. I'm really glad I have that memory. And it's almost like it's the character. Some of these rinks you love going to. I mean, how many fun games do we have in the Amherst Stadium or somewhere cool like that, right? Just a different rink, a different atmosphere. And
different atmosphere. I'd be scared people try to want to beat me up after the game or something in Amherst. It was scary.
We had some snowballs thrown at our buses and stuff. I mean, so imagine at the NHL level going to the Boston Garden or Maple Leaf Gardens or the Old Forum. As a kid, when we went to that tournament in Montreal, going and touring the Old Forum, that was incredible. And now I've never been to these rinks. They look awesome. They look amazing, but they all look kind of the same. Everyone's kind of got the same, the same features and the same size and the same everything. So, I mean, as a home team, yeah, you go in the same door. It was funny last night to watch Carey Price coming out of the Maple Leafs dressing room and turning the wrong way going to the ice because he's not used to it, because he's used to coming out of the visitors room. There's little things like that. So if you're the home team, you know where to go. You know the kind of the sounds of the rink. You know where your favorite people sit in the warm-up that you want to talk to. There's stuff like that, you have your stall, you have everything. There are creature comforts like that it's more, I think, psychological than it is now, where you could learn, okay, the boards bounce funny right here in this rink, and some of those things that the home team could take advantage of. I'm sure there's little nuances in the rinks, like in certain, but I don't think it's really that big a deal at all. I think a rink is a rink is a rink at this point, and it's more just about the atmosphere and your routine as far as pregame. So.
Okay, I'm hearing you on that, and I think his question was asked in the context. He was a bar owner here for several years in Korea, and he said he feels like at his own foosball table he can dominate, but if he goes to another one, it's very foreign. But to your point, I think foosball tables are a lot different in different places, and I think these days the rinks are pretty much all the same. Now, it is true back in the day, I remember in Detroit, we used to have those really crazy backboards before they built Little Caesars Arena and Joe Louis, and like people like Nick Lidstrom would miss on purpose. They would have a point shot, and then he would I'm doing a left here, so I look awkward. I'm a right shot, but he would do like off the boards and miss the net, so it would bounce out in front, and then they would score goals like that. I mean, they would knew all about that. All the new rinks, while they are the same, they still do. They have to build them. Somebody has to physically put them together, and some things go together a little bit differently, and some of the stanchions are a little different. And it is true, there might be some bounces that you get familiar with. They just watching the games yesterday, they mentioned like maybe Matt Murray had a bit of a problem one time seeing how it bounced off the boards or something at Scotiabank Center. So, there are going to be little things like that, but I think the main, how I would broadly put it, is that there isn't that much different as far as the ice and the boards, the familiarity. It's more how everything you mentioned. So I'm right on board with you there. So that's that. How about anything else on that?
Just a little thing that came up while you were doing that. You forced your right-handed shot, but you forced shooting left because Nick Lidstrom shoots left, and you wanted to be true to the situation. And I was thinking, now that I'm involved in minor hockey, it's amazing how few people know which way their teammates shoot. Like, I knew everyone on my team, all my line mates, and most of the people our age that I talk to are like, yeah, of course we know which way everyone shoots. And it just doesn't seem to be a thing anymore. Like,
it blows my mind. Like, even guys on my like gentlemen's hockey teams sometimes don't know what everybody shoots, and it just blows my mind. So I guess I don't know, and I know what number everybody is too. It's just part of the way they look to me, right? So it's just they just look a certain way. The number, the shot, it just has a whole thing. And even in the NHL, I think that I think I can rock maybe a 90% hit rate if somebody asks me, what does this guy shoot? Just from watching the games in general. If I know the team at all or the guy at all, probably hit which way he shoots. I would say 90%. How you too?
And there's a lot more people who shoot left. There's a lot more people now. When I grew up, it was like 50-50. I'm a right-handed shot too. You're a right-handed shot. Mm-hmm. I wish I was a defenseman right now to shot right, because you can't find a right-handed D for any team. Now, I couldn't play defense, so that kind of hurt me a little, but at least I had the right-handed shot. Now, but there's nobody that shoots right anymore. All of the kids coming up, there's only very few right-handed shots.
That's why that coveted right shot D everybody's talking about all the time. Seems to be a lot of them now, isn't it? It seems like there's a lot of those like really good right shot Ds, but they still are, I guess, sparse. People are looking for them. High commodity. In our house, I'll say there's also Turin's sister shooting left and our dad shooting left. Mom, we'll call her shoots right, I would say, but we don't see too much of that. But big shot. Best shot in the house.
By the way, both of my kids shoot left, hit ball left. And my brother-in-law, who shoots left, his kids both shoot right.
All right. Well, at least the kids got something going for them. All right. So, yeah, that is something, though. It's amazing to me, at least people on your team that you don't know, at least. I mean, if you don't know the league.
Yeah, I mean, people have no idea. God.
Anyway.
Oh, and I just thought of a story. Speaking of shooting, which way people shoot, there's a kid on my son Everett, his team, and his name is Amir. He's hilarious. And we were talking about how kids don't know which way other kids shoot. And he not only could name which way they shoot, he could name the brand of stick that everybody owned. on the team. He just knew right off. We were driving him to a game in Kentville, so it was like an hour and 20-minute drive or whatever. And
this kid's Rain Man.
This kid he was 10 years old at the time, and he's going like, this kid has this stick, this kid has this stick. And then he was asking me about different types of new sticks, and I never heard of them. I mean, I got to tell you, if
Josh uses a log.
I could still go. I want to show kids you don't need to spend a lot of money on a stick. So I tell them I could still go to Canadian Tire and get a $15 piece of wood, and I could score just as many goals with it as I could back then. So that's my point. They don't need to spend a lot of money on a stick. So you're
showing kids. You're like making your own and showing, look, I just made it. This guy uses like ridiculous sticks he's using.
That's a whole, until you bought me the lightweight stick when you were home for Christmas once.
I couldn't stand
using that in the Junior Gents League. I use wood all the time, and I still have a wooden stick that I go to sometimes when I'm not feeling good with my other one. Just comfort. So anyway, this Amir kid, he starts naming all these different types of sticks. Have you tried this? Have you tried that? And he then was like, what do you think of this Bauer? And then he named like 7 different numbers. And I'm like, I don't know, never heard of it. I don't know. And he goes, Josh, that's the stick you own right now. Because we did the first shift program, and as a coach in the first shift program, they give you gloves and a stick and a helmet, all Bauer brand. I don't know, it's a free stick. Here's a Bauer stick. It's great. So, and he knew what kind it was, and he's asking me how it is. And I said, I have no idea. And he's just like, that is what your stick is. And he pulled it out of my trunk and showed me, and I was blown away.
I will say I might not know the full number if it's one of those long code number ones that mine is, but I have the basic idea of what I've done. I'll tell you what though, Emir, thumbs up, man. This all right.
He's amazing.
I know. I mean, this is someone who's going to be reading the game, I'm sure, setting his teammates up all over the place, right? Get on Amir's line. That's what I say. This guy knows how to feed you. You were saying something else too, like before. I remember now. You told me a long time ago you brought this up, because now we're on this thing with the shots and everything. But what was your theory about left and right shots?
Well, I just started thinking about players, and I think this is what you mean. I just started thinking about historically, traditionally, my favorite playmakers, and you're talking about like Wayne Gretzky, Sidney Crosby, and they just seem to be all left-handed shots. And when you think of all, like Patrick Kane's a good stick handler, and he's a good thing. Joe Thornton, all these guys that are known for passing, they're all left-handed shots. And all the snipers, Teemu Selanne, Alex Ovechkin, Youre Curry, they're all right-handed shots. Stamkos,
Josh Boulton,
Dino Cicerelli back in the day, they're all right shots.
Shanny, Cam Neely, whatever. Go ahead, just Kessel.
So, and then when you think of all the people that were setting these guys up, they just, if you go back, I think a lot of them were left-handed shots.
Right. Now everybody's going to jump out and go, yeah, but there's exceptions. Like, Adam Oates, right hand. Yeah, I know. There's definitely exceptions. It's just there's a general trend. I think a lot on what you're saying, that left-handed one, I can feel that. And I'm also really feeling that right-hand shot one. Like, I'm trying to think of the ones where you really think of the guy who sets up on the side and just guns them. Like, you've got, Matthews now is a big-time shot, but he sets up in a different – but he's got that left hand, like, sniper thing, and – some other guys can do it, but it's not that guy that you think of that's just that bomb shot guy. It's all seems to be righties to me. I'm not on that list, by the way. I'm a righty, but I'm not one of those. I'm not trying to play that. I'm not trying to play it for that game. It's all right guys. No, not even close. But that's what I feel in your theory. It's a hypothesis at this point, everybody, but test it out for yourself. Look around, see how many exceptions you come up with. You'll come up with some, but I think the rule is where you're at. I don't know. I'm feeling it too.
Tell me some really, really good right-handed playmakers. I mean, you have Mario Lemieux, obviously, and there's going to be a couple, but and then try and find some left-handed snipers. I think is one of the hardest ones, really.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd love to hear some names, and if I'm wrong, great, prove me wrong, because it's just something I thought of, and I'm like, oh, that's curious. Is there anything to that? So
it's not just like Yeah, it's not like I'm going to add in, like, you wouldn't just say, Steve Eiserman is right. No, he's just a good player doing everything. Not that. We mean those guys that are like the setup guys. Like Joe Thornton is like, this guy will pass before he shot. If he was on an empty net breakaway, he'd be looking around, right? One of those guys.
Scott Gomez is the same way.
Scott Gomez, right? Now, I thought of one, by the way, right away. Leafs fans will be on you. Marner is this guy, setup guy with the right shot now, but I don't know. Anyway, but again, you can come up with examples all over the place, I'm sure. But people get the point, I'm sure. Go with it, guys. See what you got. Now, that whole rant did start when we were talking about the bounces in the rink and all that. So I want to get back to the rinks. What did you notice in watching the warm-up games and anything else with this? How did it look to you? What did it feel like? What stood out that, going ahead?
I liked that the seats were covered with whatever is covered them. I don't pretend to know what it is. I just know that it is aesthetically pleasing, I guess, rather than empty seats. And I'm sure someone tweeted out, I'm sure the Florida Panthers would like to know what people are doing with those seat covers for.
Oh, no.
Anyway, pick your team that you don't like. Use that joke. It's a good one. Mm-hmm. And I didn't come up with it. Like I said, I saw it on Twitter. Anyway. So the seat covers, I really like those. They just make the rink sort of look. It makes it look cool.
And not empty.
Not empty is the key. Again, with the crowd noise though, not feeling it. Really don't care for it at all. Like, I just want to hear the sounds of the game. I want to hear. I mean, you don't have to mic up the players. I like to hear the slap of the stick. I like to hear the boards when people get checked. I don't like to hear fake people and random murmurs. Like, it's great when there's people there because you're like, this is the sound of the rink. This is what the sound of the rink is. But when you're just playing street hockey, you don't hear that. When you're just playing tabletop hockey, you don't. It's not part of that game. It's part of the atmosphere of the rink. And right now, the atmosphere of the rink isn't that. So when someone scores a goal in particular, and you hear all this cheering, it's like, no, get that off there. I want to just look at, like, I don't get it. It doesn't add anything. And like I said on Twitter, I did tweet out that it hasn't really made me hate it. Like, I'm not enjoying watching the game because of it. I just kind of put it to the back. But it's not hurting my viewing enjoyment. But I'm afraid that as we go on, it may. And I hope that doesn't happen. I hope it just stays as background chatter. But it certainly isn't helping me. And I could certainly do without it. And I'd actually rather it not there. I'd rather them turn up the sounds of the game.
I remember you mentioned, I don't know where, was it something you wrote or whatever, you mentioned at the Metro Center, what's it called now? Oh my God, I'm so ignorant. I live in Korea, guys. Sorry.
Everything is called Scotiabank Center.
Okay,
every rink in the universe.
Okay, well anyway, where the Mooseheads play.
I was so happy when that drives me crazy too. Like, yes, Scotiabank, great. You sponsored all these rinks. Come up with some new names. Oh, the Scotiabank Center. Which one? The one in Toronto, the one in Halifax, the one in Ottawa? Which one? Like, I don't know where they are, but they're everywhere, and every rink is called Scotiabank Center. It's got to stop. You
would like a little character, wouldn't you?
Yes.
No, and I remember you were saying about that, though. I remember when we were young, we used to go to the Citadels games and then the Moosehead games now, and they still do it, do they? They put up the mics in the corners. Is that right?
Yeah, we take the kids to the Mooseheads game, like, not just our kids, but our minor hockey teams. We go to the Mooseheads game once a year at least, and yeah, it's all mic'd up. You can hear the stick slap of the puck. You can hear the glass rattle. You can hear the skates just and the stopping. It's awesome.
That stuff's awesome. Yeah.
That's what I want to hear.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind hearing that. And I was just thinking that now, and you would hear like all them, everything that's going on. And as you said, that's what's happening in the rink. That's what I want to know. The reason you hear the murmurs and it sounds comfortable is because that's usually what happens. And that's the sounds of the game. But that's not the sounds of the game now. So what are you showing? What are you playing for me? But when I went further on thinking about it, just as you were talking, I was like, but then if you got all that, you'd get a lot of, you might get some language that is maybe not appropriate for viewers at home, right? Because these are guys playing for keeps, so there's a lot of language out there. I don't know, like, would that be? I mean, could they manage that somehow? I don't know what the technicalities of that would be, but I would love to hear, if we could control that, then hear all the sounds, hear the guys talking. It would be awesome. But yeah, Anyway,
I don't care about the language.
okay.
But I know kids and stuff. I know my kids would watch the game. I don't think they're going to, like, if you're at a game, you can hear the players yell. If you're at the rink physically, you can hear the players yell. Don't pretend that you can't hear them yell.
Yeah,
I mean, if you're way up away from the glass, way up in the upper bowl, maybe not. But, I mean, who cares? For all the players swear, have like a 10-second delay or something. If you're able to take recordings of fans at home making sounds and being able to edit those into the thing, edit the swearing out somehow. You got to have the technology.
Yeah, you're right. I mentioned the technicality. Maybe that's it. It's a 10-second delay, and you can still get all the nice stuff, the cuts of the blades and the glass and the slap of the puck and all that, and you can avoid the pitfalls like the swearing. So I would love to hear that more than the sounds. What I will say about the sounds though is that I wasn't completely offended by it. I watched the Jays game too. Oh, Jays represent. I watched the Jays game the other day, like the first one, and I was just listening because I wanted to watch them, and I was listening to how they had the murmurs going on. I don't know. It just did whatever for me. It was kind of okay, I guess. And when I was watching the hockey, the same thing. It was kind of okay. I'd prefer what you said, but I don't know. I guess it was all right. It wasn't that exciting. It didn't sound like it really got up when things would get up. Like when there was a goal, it was almost like it was a little louder. And then I didn't know. Like it did feel like a quieter feeling like you'd get. So it didn't really sound like a real game to me. But I don't know. There was something. It was fun. And overall, it was comfortable to watch. I liked how they covered the seats. I liked the way the thing looks most of all. Everybody's going to have some way they should have had this and they should have had that and you could have had yeah, everybody's got an idea, right? But overall, I just think it looks brilliant. Like at the end of the day, we've got hockey. It looks good. I was comfortable watching the game, and I could see when we drop the puck in a real playoff game and a meaningful game that it's going to just feel awesome and then everything's going to feel different as they go back and forth. So I'm just looking forward to it so much. I have one thing too. If you had something on that, do you?
No, you're just talking about the play and how the playoffs, you can see how it's going to be really enjoyable. And I tell you, I watched the first two games yesterday, Pittsburgh, Philly, and Toronto and Montreal. And it was like, it's hockey. It's fun, but it was exhibition hockey. It really looked that way. And then the Oilers were playing the Flames. And there was more hits. I tweeted out, there was more hits in the first 2 minutes of that game than there was in the entirety of both of the other games. It was so much better hockey, so much faster, so much more energetic, so much more entertaining. And I was like, yes. Now the crowd noise isn't changing that. It's just good hockey. And that's what these guys are going to provide.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. And there's obviously those games they're going to be hitting. They're going to be in it. It's going to be way more intense. Don't worry about what you saw in those games. We're in for something way better. I did have another thing on this crowd is something that occurred to me thinking about it was I wonder how it's going to affect referees. So, because what I saw is like, a guy going around the corner, he gets a little bit of a hold and he gets pulled back a bit. And then he's like that. If you were at your home, it would be like, this big, outrage from the crowd. And the referee might put his hand up real quick just because he's kind of feels it for a second. Then he's already got his hand up. He has to. Whereas you don't get that. And you also, if there's some kind of call, you don't get, like I saw somebody was coming close to the goalie and I was almost like, what if he crashes in there? What's going to happen? But there'd be no like booing or this uproar, and the referee can kind of more see what happened and maybe make a calmer call instead of an emotional call. And then also when something does happen, they get together and they're all consulting. It's not like this pressure of like, oh my God, this building is going to hate us or whatever, or how can we balance out what we've just done to, make them upset to now appease them. Like there's not that thing. You're not trying to play that game with the crowd. Now you've got the benches and the coaches and all that. Mm-hmm. That's fine. But I think there's something there that is going to be less, because I see sometimes this stuff like that wouldn't have been called if they hadn't been feeling it, right?
I do. That's very interesting. And you know how I feel about the on-ice calls and some like the standards that they have. Oh, it's not good. Like they don't have good standards for calling things, especially in the playoffs, which is frightening. They're going to call, like they usually call less. Like you have to pretty much behead a guy in the third period of a playoff game in order to get a penalty. So I think you could look at it like well, now they don't care if they call it because they're not going to get yelled at, or they might be more inclined to just let the players play. I don't know how it's going to affect them, but I think you're right. I think they'll base it more on logic, and not saying they're not logical. I don't mean to rip the referees, but you do get what they try and manage is the temperature of the game. And the players will have their own temperature anyway. I don't think the crowd is going to affect them a whole lot, like we said. So the referees are going to manage that. But like you said, they're not going to have that bug in the rear with it's one thing to have a bench of one coach and 20 players calling something, but when you have 18,000 fans calling for something, yeah, that's probably going to get in your head a little bit. It's probably going to get you a little more hyped up. So I think this might be a good thing for the officials, where I think they'll just be more looking. They won't worry so much. They won't worry about that at all. Actually, not so much. They won't worry about it at all, and they can just focus on what is a penalty and what isn't. Hopefully that's the way it goes.
Yeah, I like the idea of temperature. You've got the temperature of the benches, but you've always had the temperature of the benches plus the temperature of the rink, and that whole big thing will be gone now. Now, again, I don't know how it's going to affect it. I'm not going to predict that. We're going to see, but it's something fun to watch for, I'd say. So why don't we just cool down the temperature in here and maybe get out of this? Are you going to say something? Maybe you make the final word here.
I would like, if they're going to pump in anything, I'd like to hear them pump in a goalie chant. Have pretend there's 5 guys lined up against the glass going, hold me. Like, that's the kind of thing that I want to hear. If I hear that would be kind of entertaining.
Yeah, do it for the home team, and then when they go back, and so you got to get some kind of home ice advantage, right? You know what I mean? So it's like 2 games, the other guy will get it, right? Or 3 or whatever it is. So.
If you are going to have noise, don't just do the random chatter. Go all out. Have the Crosby sucks chant.
If you're in Philly, you have to have it. They want to feel they want to feel at home.
You want to shoot the Columbus Cannon. Shoot it. Great. That'd be awesome.
If their home game. Yeah, I know what you mean. You could get all into it that way, couldn't you? Like, well, let's try to create home atmosphere for these people. But
to me, either go big or go home. Don't just give me some random chatter or someone chewing popcorn 3 doors down. I don't care.
All right, you heard it right there, guys. What do you guys think about it? What do you expect? What are you looking forward to with all this? How the things look? How did you like the warm-up games? What do you expect it to be like? What about the referees? What do you think of the home familiarity? Is there anything in that? And what about abandoning teams that we mentioned at the beginning? Should you? Are you a sellout? Is it okay to adopt new teams? What do you guys think all about that? Let us know in the comments section below. And we'll be looking forward to the playoffs. Puck drop on Saturday, isn't it? It's Sunday morning for me in Korea. But I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be so awesome. All right, guys, we'll check you then all the way through it. See ya. So we got off on that tangent. You got to fly there, have you? A mosquito? # cottage life, is it? Was that what you were saying? Yeah.